For Session Update, I'm Shannon Loehrke. Minnesota's recent presidential caucuses caused some unexpected difficulties when throngs of voters turned out to support their preferred candidates. Some Minnesotans could not participate due to long lines and lack of parking. Other Minnesotans could not participate due to the limited hours of a caucus event. Minnesota has toggled back and forth over the years between presidential caucuses and primaries, and the current legislature is considering a move to the presidential primary system once again. Joining me in the studio to talk about her bill is Senator Ann Rest. Welcome.
Thank you.
You pushed for this legislation in 2009, but it didn't gain any traction. What's changed this time?
Well, there are a couple of things. I think that we have finally acknowledged that our capacity to deal with huge numbers of people coming to the caucuses it's not a fluke. Mm-hmm. And I think some people thought that was maybe the case in 2008. And in 2009, we're facing deficits. Mm-hmm. And the notion of trying to plan ahead to 2012 with the presidential primary effort then just got put aside. It had, it certainly had some support, mm-hmm. but it was one of those things that was deemed nice but not necessary. And I think we have moved forward to the point where we can no longer accommodate 3,600 people coming and voting in an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. and a junior high.
Is there bipartisan support for this?
Well, there certainly is. I have the support of the chairs of the DFL and the Republican Party, Ken Martin and Keith Downey. Two of my co-authors on the bill are the majority leader in the Senate, Senator Bach, and the minority leader, Republican leader, Senator Han. They've been very supportive and very encouraging. And the authorship on the bill is completely bipartisan, and there's even been an identical bill offered also with bipartisan leadership, so with bipartisan authorship. So I'm hopeful that it will go forward this year, and I think it's important to do it this year because the party who elects their president, their nominee, mm-hmm. as president, may be less interested in it if that person then goes on to run for re-election. So we're hoping that by doing it now, when the experience is fresh in people's minds, that this is not the way for Minnesota to participate in selecting the nominee for the most important and powerful position in the world, quite frankly, that it shouldn't be done on Post-it notes, writing somebody's name on a Post-it note.
Exactly.
And so using a regular process, the regular election process, we think will enable many more Minnesotans to feel ownership of the process and increased participation in selecting the nominee of their party.
If this legislation moves forward, when would the primary be held?
We would leave that. It would be obviously in 2020, but
like which month, though?
The details of the procedures would be left to the parties, because it's not the state's interest to tell the Republican Party one way or another about their selection process.
So conceivably,
it's enabling them. It's facilitating them. So the state has an interest in two ways. One is that we're not going to, and we would be paying for it, not imposing it on local governments. We would not allow it to be just a beauty contest. Your vote will indeed count. We do want participation, so the delegates, selection of the delegates for whatever candidate it would be binding on the party. And so if one candidate got 40% and another candidate got 30 and another candidate another 30. That's how the delegates would have to be. If you were doing proportional, that's how the delegates must be chosen for those candidates. We wouldn't even tell that both parties have to do it the same way.
Okay.
The Republican Party could do it by be binding on delegates by congressional districts, or they could do winner take all.
Would the Democrats and the Republicans be on the same day, though?
Absolutely,
or would they,
on the same day,
Okay.
just as right now the precinct caucuses are held on the same day. That the date that you asked about is generally determined for precinct caucuses a year ahead of time, because both parties have to pay attention to their national party rules, and so we would honor that. We would honor whose names appear on the ballot, whether write-ins are required or allowed, whether the national parties would require a uncommitted, that you could vote uncommitted. The state would permit any kind of configuration of that, because our job is to facilitate participation in the process, not to dictate party policy either to the Democrats or the Republicans.
So one last question. The Secretary of State estimates that moving to a primary system would cost $4 to $6 million.
That's correct.
Is that a reasonable amount of money? The caucus system costs us nothing.
I do think it is. I mean, there is the trade-off. I mean, in the caucus system, even with all the hundreds of volunteers, we got chaos. That was the result. For approximately $1.25 per person, we can have an orderly process, a dependable process, a process that increases participation, allows absentee voting for any reason, whether you're out of town or whether you just can't get to a meeting on any particular Tuesday night. The vote, and you'd have to be a registered voter. Also, we would ask that when you go into the polling place, that you would ask for either the Democratic ballot or the Republican ballot, and it's not party registration. It doesn't bind you to anything. We just assume that if you take a Republican ballot, that you in general agree with the principles of the Republican Party, and vice versa with the Democrats. And we think that that's a good trade-off.
Thank you so much. We have to leave it there, but thank you so much for stopping by today.
You're more than welcome.